Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, this hearing has been long overdue. I think we can all agree that China is a problem and that we need to figure out a solution utilizing all of our allies. This is not something that we can take on our own. But I will say that I've been pleased with a lot of the bipartisan agreement on a number of things today. One of them is that defaulting on our federal debt is bad. And I think we all agree that we're not going to default. The question is, what steps do we take to regain some fiscal solvency? As the speaker says, if your kid runs up the credit card, you do pay it off, but you don't let him do it again. We have spent $7 trillion with the excuse of COVID, and that has increased our debt. But not only has it increased our debt, it has driven inflation, which is going to have long-term damage to our debt as well. So we have to take steps to address that and to regain our fiscal solvency. It is a national security issue. It is perhaps the most preeminent national security issue. So I am hopeful that we addressed our debt ceiling responsibly, reasonably, and sensibly, and I'm confident that we're going to find our path forward. So again, there's some bipartisan agreement. We're not going to default. Another thing that I was actually surprised with some bipartisan agreement was that the Biden administration handled the balloon poorly. I think the entire world was shocked as we have talked about a balloon for the last 4 days. And the disagreement has been largely partisan, but one of my colleagues across the aisle said that's why I was concerned, deeply concerned by this balloon business and why the president allowed this balloon to go all over our country and not shoot it down. He did caveat it. I love the president. I support him. But this move not to blow down the balloon sends a powerful message to both enemies and friends because it's all about data intelligence. And China got us on this one. So we agree. China got us on this one. And the question is, what are we going to do to get China to reform their behavior and compete in the global economy and be good actors in the global economy? That's the question. And I'm going to go to an issue that I think is a good case study in how to do that, and that's with 5G. Just a few years ago, Huawei, using the Belt and Road Initiative, was giving away next-generation wireless infrastructure. They were going to our allies all over the world, and the FBI said, well, hold on now, that's not a good idea. And we didn't really want to explain why, but ultimately we did, and all of our allies now have either banned Huawei, stopped purchasing from Huawei, or required 5G to be secure. We have utilized the IMF and the World Bank through a bill that I sponsored 2 years ago that was put in NDAA to make it not possible for anyone to use the World Bank and the IMF if they're using, and it doesn't even address China. It just says if you are investing in unsecure 5G, you're not eligible for IMF or World Bank. So I think that's a great example of a way that we can use our allies abroad to facilitate behavior change from China. Huawei has since taken steps to show that they are secure. They have not done a very good job. People do not believe them yet, but they're trying. They're trying to change their behavior. And I guess, Mr. Willems, I'd just like to say, is that the type of situation where we can reform China's behavior? Because again, China, I do not want them to be our enemy. I want them to be an equitable partner in the global economy, and they have to play by the rules. So is this a good example of how we can accomplish that?
I think it's a good example to talk about the importance of a comprehensive approach. Because if you think about the way that we handled Huawei, there was the legislation that you talked about, but we also had export controls, we had investment restrictions, and then now through the XM Bank, we are trying to provide 5G alternatives. And I think that shows what you need to do to successfully deal with China threats. You need to crack down, but then you also need to get on the offense and provide another alternative. And that's an approach I think we should apply to other areas as well.
Absolutely, thank you. I'm very concerned about our government's inability to adapt to the challenges that we're facing. And China has the ability to do whatever they want, whenever they want, and that is an advantage. But the control they have over their people is a disadvantage. Freedom and the American dream is what makes this country so great, and I just hope that we can tackle this in a bipartisan manner going forward. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.